I first heard the Lord's call during my first year of college. And I was coming out of sort of a hard period in high school of just confusion, being confused about who I was, what made me valuable, what my priorities were. And I had slipped into a lot of things that just weren't of the Lord. And I was feeling the turmoil of longing for the Lord, but also longing for the approval of the world. And it was just painful. And so college was a really good opportunity for me to start over. And so I got involved with the Catholic group on campus right away. I was living with a beautiful group of women and giving a lot more time to prayer, to adoration, to praying the rosary, or just talking about spiritual things with the women I lived with. And so that led me to go to a talk with one of my roommates, to a church I'd never been to before. And after the talk, they had adoration. We were sitting in the first pew, and I was on the aisle side, so I was right in front of the altar, right in front of the Eucharist. And that evening, Jesus made three things really clear. The first was that he was there, that he was really there. And I remember that just piercing my heart and being unable to doubt that he was there. The second thing was that he loved me. And I remember my heart just filling up, like to the brim, and being overwhelmed by that reality. And then the third thing was an invitation. I want you to look at religious life. It wasn't demanding, it was an invitation, a proposal. And that night, my memory of it is just being overwhelmed by his presence, by his love, and that being my first experience of deep intimacy with Jesus. After that night, I definitely had fears and doubts and questions. What about finishing college? What about my family? What about marriage? What about all the plans I had? Am I really going to be happy in religious life? But all of those questions turned out to be a means of growing in intimacy with Jesus, of letting him answer those questions and show how he was going to take care of me and fulfill my desires. I really remember that time, from that night of first hearing his call to entering, of being really marked with joy. And after living religious life, I think that's really what Jesus desires, is to give us joy. The joy of being purified of what's not of him, and so what's not really us. The joy of the freedom of being able to give a yes with all of our hearts. The joy of letting him be our king. And then for those that he calls, the joy of belonging totally to him as a spouse.